Good evening and welcome to Open Studio. I'm Steve Leahy. How are you all? I hope you're doing well. All right, let's get to it. We got this one little section to kind of finish up here, and then we're going to keep moving on. Again, I dropped the ball. I don't really have a soapbox, so we're just going to kind of wing it. What could go wrong? All right, then. Yay. Yeah, so, I wish I could interact with you. It's fun with the live streams because I can yell at you guys and you guys answer back. Clear this out first. You guys see this? No, just barely off the, there we go, off the palette cam. So I'm just going to replace the reducer in here. I talked about this before. I don't know if Createx is going to continue to make the 4011 reducer. I don't know that I need it, but because it works great with the Airbrush, it's working okay with the paintbrush, but I'm not 100% sure yet. So I'm still kind of working all that out. One thing that did happen is, oh, there they all are. I'm like, where'd all my paintbrushes go? I got them. All right, everything's fine. Everything's fine. All right, so where are we at? We're just going for it. All right, so this little guy right here, I'll start with this little building right here because it's right here. Soapbox for tonight. Holy moly. Yeah, I was on a tear last week. I apologize for that. It was just that whole credit where credit is due. It just, like I was saying last week, I don't know why, but it drives me nuts when people don't give credit where credit is due. And I don't know if I mentioned this last week. I think I did, but maybe I didn't. Nepotism is another big one that I'm a big fan of. So nepotism is when, a parent takes care of their child in a way that, they use, basically if a parent has some pull in a certain area, they use that, or the child also gets benefit from that. And you know what? I'm a huge fan of that. Like, if I will take care of my kids to the nth degree, and I will use whatever I got. Obviously they got to pull their own weight. Like if your child's an actor, or if you're an actor and you're a really popular actor, and your child wants to be an actor or an actress or whatever. I guess it's all actor now. And then that child will obviously get breaks that other people won't get because their parent is already a famous actor, right? That's fine. That's good. Now the child has to be a good actor. If the child just kind of floats along on mom and dad's name, that sucks. And we live in a society now that's pretty much called out. If someone's getting opportunities and they don't deserve them. We live in a instant culture now where that gets called out. However, it does happen, and it sucks. But on the other side of that too, like, people should take advantage of the breaks they get, even if other people don't get those breaks. That's life. That's fine. But if you're a child, or if your parent helps you along and gets you in a place where other people don't really get to, you gotta give them credit for that. To say that, yeah, you know what, I did all this on my own. It's all my talent that got me here. That's a load of crap too. And that does happen in art. A successful parent will give their child breaks that they can, and then the child goes on and basically makes it sound like they did all of it on their own. That's a pile of poop. You know what I mean? Again, that's not giving credit where credit is due. Like I said, I'm all for it. If a parent can give a kid a leg up and help them along the way, and get them to or allow them to avoid pitfalls that they've encountered, I'm all for that. But a child who then acknowledges that, that's a win in my book, 100%. it's difficult to be angry with someone or jealous of someone because of their position in life. You know what I mean? If they get breaks that you don't get, then that's just the way that goes. But for God's sakes, man, people got to give credit where credit is due. See it happen, too many times where, again, a parent or not necessarily a sibling. Well, I guess sibling. I haven't really seen that too much when one family member is, whatever. But especially it happens a lot with parents. You know what I mean? Guys, people gotta do it. But I don't really want to talk about that. I pretty much covered all that last time. So we'll talk about something different. So let's think of something different to talk about. Something happy. All this paint is dried out. I let my wet palette dry out, and it's just not a good thing. It's fine. It keeps me from trying to stretch the paint out too far. You know what I'm saying? If I keep the wet palette wet all the time at the proper levels, it's always going to be pulling that water in, and then it just, the paint gets really wonky, and it really, I shouldn't be doing that. I should just put a new drop of paint out. So it's kind of a self-check thing for me when I forget to water the palette. You know what I mean? It helps keep things honest over there in palette land. So what's going on here? This is another timely video. I'm recording this the night before it goes live, which, that's good. Sometimes I film them in advance, but it's been a wild week, and I didn't have a chance to get a lot of stuff done, so I'm filming this the night before. So things are pretty timely. What's going on right now? I have 2 paintings that I've submitted into the Paul and Norma Tikkanen Painting Prize, which is a gigantic show in Ashtabula, Ohio, of all places. Paul was a painter, and when he passed, they started this, or I think he might have started the foundation, but anyway, the foundation was started in his name, he and his wife, and it is a huge show. One reason, well, money's always a thing, right? So the endowment that was left for this prize was large. So the prize is large, and that always attracts, a lot of people. But when you attract a lot of people, you also attract a lot of good art. So that's what this show is really, really about. It's got some, the winners in the past have just, been killer artists and, gone on to do great things and all that fun stuff. So this is the first year that I've entered. I won't find out until the day after this airs if I make the first cut. And it's kind of a neat setup for a show. Again, because it's such a big and popular show, the way they do it is the first round is essentially online. So you put your artwork, you enter your artwork online, which is pretty common for call for entries now. And a call for entry for an art show is just that. They put out this notice that the show is open, and then you submit your work. So digitally is been the way to go recently, which is great. So you upload your picture and the description and all the fun stuff, and then am I still on the camera? Good. I just want to make sure. And then, in smaller shows, they'll go over them all, and then they'll pick the paintings they get in, and then they get in. This is a big show. So what happens here is you submit your work as you would normally with a call for entries. They sort through all those call for entries, all those submissions, and then they pick the ones that make the next round, which is really, I love it. I think it's a great way to do it. If your painting makes the next round, you actually bring your painting to it's the Ashtabula Arts Council. Yes, that runs it? Yes, I think that's what they're called. So you bring it there, and then the paintings that made the first cut get juried live, so then they decide what paintings are going to get in the show, but they can look at them for real, and I love that. And I know not everyone can do that. It takes a lot of effort, and again, this show is well funded, so they have the resources to do this, and so then your painting goes on, and the judges look at it. and if it makes a second cut, then you're in the show. And I'm not sure when they determine the awards. There, like I said, this show has it has a large awards across the board, not just first place, but all the awards are substantial. So that, obviously makes it popular, but it's an honor as well. It's an honor to, and like any show, it's an honor to get in. However, this show is a big deal to win. So again, I approach these things all the same way. If I get in, it's a win. I just, I'm happy with that. If you win an award, that's icing on the cake. So, I'd love to, but, just to get in this show is a huge deal. I know a lot of artists, really good artists, that have made that first cut and, really haven't gone on from there. So it is a extremely competitive show. And again, it sounds like, I don't know. It sounds like it's just, of course you'd want to get in and win something, but really, 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 the win is just getting in this show. So that's what's going on. When you see this, when this airs, I will be one day away from finding out if my paintings got in. And the two paintings I put in are Albers Fender, this one here, which is the ode to Joseph Albers and his book and the way we see color. It just made a lot of sense to me with this painting, because that fender in this painting really kind of personifies, or really not personifies, it really like is the visual description of what Albers talks about in his book. And that's how we perceive color and how we use color in a two-dimensional way to make things look three-dimensional, to make things look like the way they're supposed to. He uses his book to illustrate that with making things look transparent when all you're using is three different colors, the two colors, and then when you cross them over, you have to find that color that would make one look transparent. And he does a lot of those type of exercises. So it's a wonderful book. It's it's an interesting book to read. Interactions of color. It's just good all around. So that is my ode to Joseph Albers with this painting. The next one is the painting Island Creek, which is my landscape of the little creek right outside the house here. So it was a cold winter day. That little creek is nothing to look at. It's actually it's fed by a lot of the storm drains in the area. So it's not a particularly beautiful creek during the spring or summer. You drive right by it, you wouldn't even notice it. But in the winter, it was just beautiful. The water was clear. It didn't have that agricultural runoff that we have here in Ohio. We have a lot of industrial agriculture, and so you get a lot of runoff from that kind of stuff. So it wasn't, there was none of that in the water. You could see the little rocks in the bottom. The snow had covered all the kind of overgrown areas, and it just looked really, really beautiful. So I was looking for something to paint in this area, and that answered the question for me without too much of a problem. So that painting's called Island Creek. So those are the two that I entered. This show is split into two different categories, basically. There's a realism category and then an abstract category. So obviously I entered into the realism category, and again, it would be amazing. I'm holding my breath and hoping that happens, and if it doesn't, I'll come up with, I have one new painting in the works that will be ready for next year, and we'll just try again, as a lot of people do with this show. You don't get in, you just tighten your belt and go for it again the next year. So that's kind of what's going on right now, which is good. And I want to find a couple other shows to enter. Usually the summer is pretty good for that. So we'll see what we got coming up. Callforentries.org is my primary, but I also keep my ear to the ground, like I talked about with kind of finding your shows. I look to other artists and see what shows they enter to help find shows that I would like to enter. And so, I'll start getting into doing more of that. And I think I want to try to hit some national shows as the second half of the year kind of rolls on. It's easy for me for national shows, not obvious. Well, I hope you didn't assume I meant to get in, but for me to enter them is easy because my paintings are real small, as you know, so it's very easy for me to ship paintings, and that gives me it gives me an advantage to entering shows all over the place. You know what I mean? I don't have to stick with shows that are local that I can drop my stuff off at, which is extremely helpful. It gives me a good opportunity to enter all kinds of different things. So it's definitely going to be something that like the next group of shows will be will be more national type of things. So that is the inner workings. The sale just ended here, the summer sale, which is always fun. I use the summer and the winter sales to kind of help move along some stuff that's been here for a little bit. Gives people an opportunity to collect art. I try super hard not to discount art, so it's really the only time that I do that. So that's always fun. A lot of people look forward to that. If you'd like to make sure you are notified when that happens, you can just go to my website, which is stephenleahy.com, and you can sign up for the mailing list. I promise I will not spam you with zillions of emails. What I use the email for is to announce a new painting and kind of give a little feedback or a little background on a painting. And then the other thing that I will do is anytime there's a sale or a special event, I'll use the email list as the first round for that, so that people on the email list will get notified first. So if you'd like to be an insider, just really easy, just go sign up on the mailing list. And like I said, I promise you I will not spam you with endless emails. I hate that, and you're not going to get any of that out of me. So there you go. What else is going on here? It's summertime, weather's good. We've been having a lot of heat here in Ohio, which has been interesting. So that's broken, which is good. So yeah, so that's good. What else we got? I don't know, but I'm happy. I messed up my foot somehow. That was fun. I ended up getting a pinched nerve somewhere in my leg. So that was fun. It's affecting my foot. I know, I'm not going to talk about health stuff. This is dumb. Let's talk about something else. What else we got? I'm thinking about new ideas for the channel too. I love what we got going on, but I want to have some fun with it. So thinking about some different ideas for that too. If you guys have any suggestions, please let me know. You can just send me a message. The best way to send me a message again is through the website. I have all my socials, but social media does not make it necessarily easy for me to get those messages, like especially with the Book of Face. That is excessively tough for me to get messages because they don't always appear, and they're weird, and they're, goofy. All right, I think that's good for that. What I want to do, we have about 10 minutes left, so I want to do a little bit of airbrushing on this right now because I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, and not really, but like I said, it's really good for me to balance things. If I do a lot of paintbrushing, I try to jump in with some airbrushing to kind of balance that out. What do I do with the black? Oh, there it is. It's in the wrong spot. This is fun. We're doing it. Getting things done. I really have to get the wood for this frame now. So that's going to pop up pretty soon where I'll have one of the feeds won't be painting. It'll be more talking about the frame. But I got to get the wood for that first, which I still haven't found. Trying to find a native Japanese hardwood, and that's harder than it sounds. One, because there are only a few, real well-known species of Japanese hardwood, and I'm finding it difficult to get anything local. I'm going to have to order something, which I worry about, because I like to look at the wood because I'm only using a small bit of it. By the way, this is the Infinity CR Plus that I'm using for this. Yeah, so I love to actually pick out the wood for real, but I don't think that's going to happen with this one. I think I have to order it online and kind of hope I get what I need. So I'm still waffling on what type of wood I'm going to use for this. But it does have to be a native Japanese hardwood. It definitely needs to be that. So there's a great Japanese oak. There's a great Japanese cedar. So I do have some ideas for it, but I got to get it done. I got to get that stuff in so I can build a frame for this. Usually the frame is pretty much underway by now, by the halfway point of the painting. But I don't even have the wood for this yet. This brush, this between the CR and the Micron B, man, these things work great. All right, then we just knocked out that whole block. And I know, I keep saying it. We still got what, 8 minutes? I know I keep saying it. It's like, oh my gosh, it's going to get faster and faster. But hopefully that shows you what I was just talking about. It is getting faster. I'm knocking out these little blocks, faster and faster as we go. So that's a good thing. All right, let's do above this little tan building. Again, I'll say it again, if you have an idea for a soapbox, if you're tired of listening to me talk about my feet, then, drop it in the comment. There's a comment post on the page. So you can just type it right in there, and I will be happy to spout off about things I have no idea or things I shouldn't be talking about. That's totally fine. Yay, that's all good. That building is there. I almost have to airbrush a little bit for this next section because there's nothing going on there. Interesting. We have time for that, right? Yeah. And is it you too? All right. Yeah, let's do a little airbrushing to set that up for next time. Ha! If I can find the, there it is. I got it. Yay, I'm gonna make more copies. I'm almost through all the copies I made originally, which is wild. All right, cool. I'm gonna do it again. Who's yelling at me not to put the, actually, I thought of it this time, so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to move the painting instead of putting the cutting mat on the painting. And we'll line you guys up. Again, find the track, because that's where we're working from. Right there. Wait, what am I doing? I'm doing the area above the building on the not elementary school. It's a middle school. So here what I'm doing is, because this is getting really, really small, but I still need those landmarks. Again, I still want to be as accurate as I can for this painting. I'm telling you that we're getting into the point now where I could just, abstract all this stuff. Just do a big pattern in there. I have to resist. I really have to resist. Not that anyone's going to be able to pick out these buildings. No one's going to say, hey, that's my, I don't know. I know in England they call, the apartments flats, or in the US they're apartments or condos. I know there's no one going to be looking at this painting saying, oh, hey, that's my, that's where I live, in these buildings back here. It's just, they're too small. But it doesn't mean that, I can't still be as accurate as possible. Again, because now you guys see it because you're watching me do this. You guys know that I'm putting in everything I got for it. And I'll know that too, you know what I mean? So that's the whole point of this painting. Again, the idea is to tell the story. I'm not making up the story, it's the story. So by me keeping this as accurate as possible, I'm telling the story as accurate as possible. You know what I mean? That's important to me on this. Like I said, there's a zillion ways to tell a story, Some people just give you the briefest outline and they let your brain kind of fill in the rest of it. For me, I want you to experience it because you have all the info. That's the way I want you to get it. I don't want you to have to say, okay, what am I looking at here? How does it make me feel? You know what I mean? It's like, that's all great and everything, but it's not the way I want to tell this story. And it's not the way that I want to tell the story with my art. Again, I can't stress it enough. It's one method is more valid in storytelling. It's just that this is the way that I like to do it. I want you to feel the heat of the day, or I want you to feel the mist in this painting, in this image. I want you to feel that cool Japanese morning. I want you to be able to see these different buildings and say, hey, that's whatever this building is. That, and I want you to just, not have to fill in the blanks. I want you to be able to experience it without having to do that mental legwork. So, but I am, I'm asking you to do that mental legwork because, again, you guys are super close and you see that it's, when you're this close, it is more impressionistic. It's, yes, when you back out, the idea is that it's, as realistic as I can make it, but because this is so small, now up close, this is very, impressionistic. And that's fun too, that it's, if someone does get really close and they like impressionistic work, that's really what this is. I can't paint with micro resolution, you know what I mean, with microscopic resolution. And if I could, it wouldn't matter because you couldn't see it, you know what I mean? So there's that too. Again, these are the things that you kind of work out when you decide what you like for your art and how you like to tell a story. And again, I can't stress this enough either. Just because you paint a certain way doesn't mean that you can't like everything. You know what I mean? If you paint super realistically and super, you want to get every little note and every little, breath and every little line, it doesn't mean that you can't like abstract work or, heavily impressionistic work. That's fine because, just because you write a certain way doesn't mean you can't read other types of literature. You know what I mean? So don't get trapped into that. And of course, that goes true with music too. If you like one type of music, or if you're a musician and you perform one type of music, it definitely does not mean, I have to hate everything else. You know what I mean? That's just juvenile. It's not a great way to be. All right, I'm getting all these little tiny things, which is good. I'm just kind of picking them out. These are the things I did not grab originally because it's, the minutia that I knew I'd be getting into later on. And if I had to do this originally, I would have, just lost my mind, doing just all this little stuff. So this works out well. And again, I'm just picking the lightest things here. I could have picked the darkest things. It doesn't really matter whether I pick the light or the dark because one will tell me where the other one is. I could even do both. So after I'm done with all these little tiny light areas, I could cut out a matching template with all the really dark areas. But again, here I don't need that. I think that's going to be good for this section. That'll get this whole blob done. All right. We're going to spray, I know we're running just about to the end, but we're going to spray this out so you can see it, and then we'll just pick up where we left off next week. You guys are hanging in there through this entire painting. This is, again, I said it before, you know, this open studio was the best thing to kind of stumble upon, and I'm really, really happy that, you know, this painting will eventually be done, hopefully, you know, and when it's done, you guys would have been here for every single moment of this thing. So that makes me happy. All right, so we're going to grab a little bit of opaque white, drop this in, and then we'll take a look at the whole thing. And again, we're getting stuff done. We really, really are. Yeah, I am probably going to run this all the way up to the top before I start working on the other bank. Again, this is opaque white. It is fairly thick. It's 2 to 1, so it's 2 parts paint to 1 part reducer. But what's nice about that is it's nice and thick, and it doesn't want to run underneath the template. And it reaches opacity really much quicker than if it was super thin. So it works great for doing this. Like I only hit that with 3 or 4 passes, and I've got all those lovely white little line, you know, areas in there. All right, so that sets us up. So let us take a look at the whole thing. All right, so here it is. And again, now there's that section we just airbrushed in, and then this is a little section we just finished. So see, we're just taking them in probably, what is that, 1/4 inch little chunks now? Yeah, 5/16, something like that. And then I just got it locked in this 1/2 inch section up here. So what I was saying earlier, or right before we switch to this view, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this little triangle. I'm going to do the whole thing up here, and then I'll jump over and do the other side of the river, or maybe, you know, do the river and then do this side. But yeah, and I know I keep saying it, but you gotta believe me. As we get, you know, as we get farther up, things are getting a little quicker. What I am noticing though, like this neighborhood we're going to put in next week is really, you know, small buildings, and it's far away. So this is going to, you know, be pretty nondescript. The buildings along the river are bigger, and you can actually make a lot of them. So there's a lot of good detail in that. And then and on the other side of the riverbank, all these buildings are pretty noticeable as well. You can see that in the copy here too. So, but it's coming out. Another thing I want you to kind of keep an eye on right now, and we're going to address this when we get there at the end, but you notice how much more vibrant my painting is from the copy. The copy has there the clouds, or the, you know, yeah, I guess they're clouds, and the little whatever fog that's over the rest of the city. But you also notice how subdued this is. I'm going to do that to the whole painting at the end. So that's the fun part, and that's what's really going to tie it together. But we'll talk about that as we get near the end. All right, so you guys know what to do. If you enjoyed this, please hit the like and subscribe, which is right there. Actually, it's down below, but that's the reminder there. That will help us out a lot. It'll help grow the channel. If you know someone who would like to, you know, hang out with us, please share this. That would be great too. If you'd like to support us in a more financial way, you can become a member here. You get early access to Time Lapse Tuesday, which is a lot of fun. And you also get a 10% discount on everything on my website all the time. So that website I sent you to earlier, you get 10% off on that all the time. All right, so for Steve Leahy and Through Lachlan's Eyes, I will catch you all next week. Thanks a lot.